Hello, my name is Susie Garden. I'm going to take you through a 20-minute pregnancy yoga sequence that's suitable for all levels. This practice assumes that you're free from injury, particularly knee injury, spinal, and even low or high blood pressure. And you should always get clearance from your doctor before commencing any exercise program. So let's begin. Let's start by putting one hand on the heart chakra and the other hand on your baby. And just close down the eyes and just take a few deep breaths in and out through the nose. And just imagine from the heart chakra, loving energy just coming down towards your baby. And just feel that beautiful energy nourishing your baby. And just making that connection. With every breath in and out, just visualize that love. And then bring your attention to your breath, coming in through the nose, feeling it in the nasal passages, the back of the throat, and visualize it going down into the lungs and down again to your baby, bringing that beautiful fresh air to your baby. And just allow your mind to be cleared of any thoughts other than you, your baby, and this yoga practice. It's 20 minutes where you can leave behind your to-do list and anything else that's not sort of part of this practice on your mat. And just enjoy this time for you to connect with your baby and your breath. And opening the eyes, removing the hands. We're going to start with a shoulder opening sequence. It might be comfortable if I'm actually sitting on a little blanket. You can sit on a pillow or a blanket just to give the hips a little bit of lift and to be comfortable. I'm going to start with the hands at prayer position and then just clasping the hands, breathing in, stretching up through the spine, breathing out, just curling through the upper spine and the shoulders. Breathing in, looking up, breathing out, clasping the hands behind the back, and then breathing out to come back to center, and doing this sequence again, breathing in and out, and in and out, and in and out. And we'll just go through that again, in and out, just noticing the shoulders opening, breathing in and out, breathing in and out, back to the heart. We'll do this one more time, in and out, and in and out, breathing in and back to the heart. This time we're just going to go half of this sequence, so breathing in and out, breathing into the top, and then finding your prayer position and just dropping your left hand, so I'll be your mirror, down to the mat and just gently stretching into the shoulder and the upper part of the body. Golden rule with pregnancy is we don't stretch the belly, so just make sure you're not taking that stretch into the belly, it's into the side of the body, the shoulder, keeping a nice space between the ear and the shoulder. And then breathing in back up to center, stretching through the spine, and breathing out, coming over to the other side, keeping both sitting bones grounded. And just listen to your body as to how far you're going to stretch today. And just have a couple of nice deep breaths in, just really connecting with your breath. And then we're going to breathe in to come back up to center. And once more on each side, breathing out, maybe finding a little bit more stretch this time, particularly in the shoulder area. Really try to keep the shoulders relaxed. And breathing in, back up to center. Last time, breathing out, back down. Nice little stretch. Just bring those shoulders down away from the ears. You can close down the eyes if you wish. And then breathing in, back up to center, stretching up through the spine and bringing the hands down through the center line back to the heart, and then separating them out. And then just slowly bring your feet out, the legs out, keeping them hip width or wider apart. We're just going to do some little circles through the ankles. You can lean back for this. As you know, in pregnancy you do tend to retain fluid in the extremities. So there's no real rules to this. We're just moving the ankle joints and just helping to pump that fluid back out of the lower half of the body. So just moving the feet around just to get a little bit of circulation back into the legs and moving that fluid. Lovely. Now we're going to come over onto all fours. So just make your way over. You can use the blanket to pad up the knees if you wish, by just placing it across the mat. That can make you a little bit more comfortable because we will be on the knees for a little while. So coming over onto all fours, we're going to do what's called cat-cows. So we're going to exhale and tuck the tailbone in, hugging the baby up. And on the inhale, we're going to come to neutral. Remembering our rule, we don't stretch the belly. So exhaling, tucking the tailbone under. Inhaling, coming to neutral. If it's comfortable for you to lift the heart a little, then feel free. Exhaling, and you can do this at your own breath pace. You don't need to keep pace with me. Just make sure you don't collapse through the shoulders. You're pushing through the hands to keep that nice, strong shoulder. And if you wish, you can pause this video at any time if you wish to spend a little bit more time on any of these poses. So next time you come back to neutral, we're going to sit back onto the feet, bring the big toes together, and just bring the knees mat width apart. I'm going to come down towards the mat. Now, depending how big your belly is at this stage, you might want to come to a Sphinx position just onto the forearms. You might want to use your fists to support the head, or you might be able to make it all of the way down to the mat and rest the head. So it's completely up to you. We're looking for a stretch on the inner thigh. If you're not getting that stretch, just sit back up, bring the knees a little bit further apart, and come back down and find your position. And we're just going to have a few long, deep breaths in that pose. Next breath in, looking forward, and then walking the hands back towards the knees. Bring the knees back in line with the hips. We're going to actually come up onto the knees and go into a lunge. So if you do have some yoga blocks handy, this might be quite helpful for you depending on which stage of your pregnancy you're at. Otherwise, you could use a couple of tins, like tinned food, that can be quite sturdy, but yoga blocks are pretty easy to get a hold of. And just place them in front, ready for you to come forward onto them. So we're going to bring the left leg forward and come into a lunge. I'll just let you see this. So we're going to make the knee and the ankle come into alignment. It's really important that the knee doesn't go forward of the ankle. We don't want to put any strain onto the knee. And depending on how big your belly is, you may need to move that foot out a little bit, and you may need to bring the hand inside the leg. So I'll do the pose like that on this side. And we're looking for a stretch into this hip here. And this can be really quite lovely, particularly if you spend a lot of time sitting. And remember too, I'm sure you're aware that when you're pregnant, you have a hormone called relaxin that's going around your body, and that is preparing your body for childbirth by actually making the joints a little bit looser, so you might be more flexible than normal in this pose, so just be mindful of that. Now we're going to come back and push through that front foot and look for a hamstring stretch here on the back of this leg. So you can keep your hands on the blocks, or if it's more comfortable, you can bring them here. And then we're going to breathe in and come forward again. And you can lift through the heart. And then coming back, allowing that hamstring to stretch, keeping the spine nice and straight, not allowing it to bend forward. And then breathing in, coming back to the front. And then once more, coming back into that hamstring stretch. And then breathing into the front, we're just going to move these blocks out of the way and change legs. So bringing that right foot forward, again making sure that knee and ankle are in alignment. And if you need to move that leg out to the side, feel free and use your blocks. And just find that beautiful stretch on that left side of the hip. And what I said before about the relaxin, it can actually make you move your joints or be able to flex your joints further than normal. And so you can just make you a little bit more prone to injury, I guess. So just be very careful. If you feel like it is beyond where you would normally be able to go, you can just bring the blocks back a little bit and just be, I guess, very mindful of listening to your body. So now we've had a bit of a stretch on this hip, we're going to come back and find that hamstring stretch. Have a breath here. And then come forward, and again lifting through the heart, keeping the shoulders relaxed. And then coming back into that hamstring stretch. And forward. And back again. This time coming forward for the last time, bringing those blocks out to the side and coming back onto the knees. We're going to come into a squat, and it can help to actually use the blanket to pop the heels on. So you can just move your blanket around and pop the heels onto your blanket. Now the toes need to just point out a little bit to the sides, and just taking your elbows into the knees and finding prayer position, thumbs at the heart. Now you can have your feet as far apart as they need to be for this pose. Keep the shoulders away from the ears, and you can close down the eyes. This is a beautiful pose to do, particularly when you're pregnant, to help prepare for birth. Just to really relax through the hips, keeping again that back nice and straight, being careful not to flop forward, just being quite straight and still in the pose. And again, we're going to stay here just for a few breaths, but if you wanted to pause the video and just stay here for a bit longer, feel free. And from here, we're going to disengage the arms nice and slowly. We're going to come into a forward bend. And again, having the block handy can be a good idea for this. You do need to be a little bit careful with your blood pressure doing this one, so just be careful. So we're just simply going to straighten the legs and come off your blanket for this. Keep the feet on the mat though, so they're nice and secure. And you can use the block just to give you some support. If you're quite flexible and you're quite comfortable coming down a bit further into the mat, that's absolutely fine as well. Or if you feel like you need a bit of a higher edge on the block, then that's fine too. Some people find using a wall or leaning on the back of a chair also can be very helpful for this pose. So just use an option that works for you, depending on the stage of your pregnancy. So if we're looking for a nice straight back and just feeling a stretch up the backs of the legs, if you're not quite feeling that stretch, sometimes just coming forward a little bit will help activate that. And just keep little micro bends in these knees as well. Just having a couple of breaths here. And then we're going to come to standing, so just bend the knees a little bit, and you can bring the hands to the thighs and just help yourself up. You can roll back those shoulders, and then we're going to come to the top of the mat. So at the top of the mat, bring the feet about hip width distance apart or even a little bit wider depending on how your balance is at the moment. And then we're going to take the right foot back just over a leg length. If you've got any issues with the lower back at the moment, just come up onto the ball of the foot. And again, if you find you're a little bit unsteady, you can actually move that front foot out a little bit to the side so that you're widening your base. It just makes you a little bit more stable. So make sure the hips are nice and straight across, not kind of doing this action. Just helps with stability. And then we're going to breathe in, lifting up through the arms, breathing out, coming into a lunge. And so just be careful with this that your knee and ankle are in alignment, that the knee is not overshooting the ankle, and that the knee is not falling inwards. So you should still be able to see your big toe. We'll just have a few breaths here. If you're finding it's a little bit too much having the arms up, you can bring them down to the heart, if that makes you feel a little bit more stable. Just a few breaths here. You should feel a stretch down the front of this leg. We're building strength in this other leg. There should be no pain in the back at all doing this kind of movement. If you're feeling any sort of pain or discomfort in the back, you should come out of the pose. So one more breath here. And then we're going to release the hands, bring them forward as you come back to the top of the mat, and then just working into the balls of the feet just to stretch through the legs and just bring some movement back into the legs. And then we'll set up for the other side. So again, finding those feet hip width apart or wider, taking your left leg back this time, and again remembering if you've got any lower back issues to keep that ball of the foot on the floor rather than the heel. And then making sure the hips are square, breathing in, stretching up through the arms, breathing out, coming into that lunge and just checking into that front knee. And this time I'll do the pose with the hands up, but you can bring them down to the heart if you wish. And if the hands are up, you're just trying to get the biceps close to the ears. But at the same time, keeping these shoulders down and relaxed and away from the ears. It's a little bit challenging. It does take a little bit of work. So another breath here. And then when you're ready to come out, taking the hands down, breathing in to come forward, and then again just rocking through the feet, bringing that movement into the legs. And then we're going to come back to the back of the mat. So we've come back to the back of the mat, and again the feet about hip distance or a little bit further apart, just depending on your balance. And we're going to come into a forward bend. So you can use the hands along the body to help you down, and little micro bends in the knees as you come down. And if you have any issues with the lower back and you're more comfortable just hanging on to the lower legs, then that's fine. If you're very comfortable in the back, you can come forward. Perhaps your hands might reach the mat, in which case you can rest them on the mat. Otherwise, you might want to grab the elbows and just have a beautiful stretch through those vertebrae. Your back should feel completely comfortable in this pose. So just having a couple of breaths here. And then we're going to bring the hands to the floor and just walk the hands away from the feet into a downward dog. So the hands are forward of the shoulders. Pinky fingers might be quite close to the edge of the mat. And just pushing through the hands, spreading the shoulder blades across the back, little micro bends in the elbows. And you might want to stretch through the back of each leg, walking the dog. Bringing one heel down to the mat at a time. And then we're going to breathe in, coming up onto the toes, breathing out, heels to the mat, and then bringing the knees down to the mat and finding a comfortable seat. So again, using a blanket or a cushion just to help support the hips. I'm just going to come down onto the mat and bring the feet out in front of you. You can have them about hip distance apart again. It just depends again where your belly is because we're going to come forward. So you can flex into the front of the feet, just starting to walk forwards, and you can keep your hands on your legs or bring them onto the floor in front of you. And we're pivoting from the hip, so keeping the back nice and straight. So rather than hunching over like this, we're leading with the chest and coming forward. And depending on how flexible you are, you might like to stay sort of halfway there, and you might be getting a nice stretch. We're looking for a stretch up the backs of the legs doing this. If you're quite flexible, you might be able to reach the feet, in which case you can hang on to the feet. And just keep the neck nice and soft and the jaw soft. Shoulders are away from the ears. And we're just feeling that lovely stretch down the back of the leg. Again, this is all about opening the hip. And some nice deep breaths here. And then next breath in, looking forward, walking the hands back along your body or along the floor to come to a seated position, and then just bringing some movement into the legs. And then we're just going to bring the feet together for this final hip opening pose. So the heels are a little bit forward of the knees. We're sitting up on the blanket, nice straight spine, and we're going to pivot from that hip again. So you might be feeling a stretch just sitting up like this, and that's perfectly fine. Just stay where you are. If you want to come forward, just gently start to come forward. You can place the hands just on the feet, or if you can reach the floor, you can come forward to the floor. And just again, keeping that neck nice and relaxed, looking about 30 centimeters in front of your feet. And just following the breath in and out of the body. Just allowing the hips to open naturally with gravity. And you can stay a bit longer in this pose, or you can come out now, breathing in, lifting the head a little, and using the hands again to come back up, using the hands to bring the knees back in, and just giving that little bit of movement to the legs. And now we're ready for our Shavasana, our resting pose. So you must always, if you're in the second or third trimester, always lie on your left side, which is the side where the heart is. And for Shavasana, we would recommend that you use a couple of pillows or a blanket to help support the leg that's on the top. So that's the right leg, and also some support for your head. So coming down to the mat and straightening that back leg, bringing the right leg onto the pillow or bolster, placing one hand on your baby, and you can stay here for as long as you like for your Shavasana.